Good evening, everybody. Let me fix that. Should be good to go now. And very good to go now. Thank you everybody for tuning in. And characteristically this week is we are going to be running here at Circuit du Paul Ricard with the really long straight. We may see some bump drafting. Celebratory race for the release of NASCAR 25 tomorrow, or some of you may have been getting some laps put in like I have over the weekend if you pre-ordered, but official release tomorrow morning. And if any of you guys are interested in racing over there, please let me know. We don't have cross-play as of yet, so if you're on Xbox, shoot me a message and we can get some racing going. Especially I'd love to race with a few of the GoFAST racing crew. Slapshot currently the only one out in practice to have completed a lap time. A 1:54.925. Currently the top time in free practice. But we'll see if any other drivers should be able to set faster lap times. Slapshot is quick, but he's not the quickest out there. As Goose in the BMW, as expected, the BMW, one of the stronger cars in a straight line. Not as strong as the Lexus, though, and Dive Bomb Danny in the number 84 Lexus really could be one of the drivers to take a look at. Especially down the long backstretch here. If that Lexus has the slipstream of anybody, you can pretty much guarantee that it will go past them. Goose still on top of the 1:54.787. What about Dive Bomb Danny? If this lap is clean, could be quicker. And it is a 1:54.560, almost a quarter of a second clear of the time set by Goose in the BMW. In AM, currently Clint in the Holy Shift Bros number 970 Ferrari 296 GT3. Making his way out of 6 and 7 onto the backstretch. No chicane like you have on the Formula 1 version of the circuit or a few of the Cup layouts. Just a long run from here all the way down to turn 8. Now you will have cars start to get side by side with each other by the time you get to turn 8. And then it then becomes a compromise of, well, who will give the inside, who will take the outside. Slapshot back on top of the 1:54.430. Currently running behind the Aston Martin of Zoenom. Slipstream really could be a factor here in terms of qualifying. If you can just give yourself the edge over the competition. And as of right now, it looks to be a bit of a slugfest between Slapshot and Dive Bomb Danny. Times creeping down closer to the 153s, still above the 154s. I believe we may be heading into kind of the dusk hours. Slapshot, Dive Bomb Danny, Goose. The GTR with Knifestalk in the helm and AM could really be a factor. Now steering is one thing that you'll have to get figured out. And Brother Elmo going with the Bentley. It's a bit of a different choice. But when it raced in GT3, ACC came out before Volkswagen killed the Bentley Motorsport program. Bentley was very strong, but Dive Bomb Danny, first driver down into the 153s, a 153.725, almost 0.4 of a second clear of Slapshot. Ethanol now up into P3 in AM in the G2 Racing Mercedes AMG. I believe this should be the GT3 Evo. Currently in tow, is that the number 17 McLaren of Hope Blue? Yes, it is, and Hope Blue will be granted the outside. He is expected to be the quicker driver of the two. Between AM and Pro, there is no requirements of racing separately or finishing separately. You can race together, but there is going to be a split qualifying, so these two would not be able to qualify together. That does not mean that there can't be teamwork between teams amongst their respective classes. The MSA duo, the XCL duo, there's quite a few teams that run very close to each other. The Too Slow Racing duo of Dingham and Nate, which we should have Nate with us tonight. I don't know that we do. And Neko Mimi Dark, I'm not sure if this is new entry. I think it's just I think it's Phoenix Gecko, just running a different name. So we should see Phoenix up towards the top in the BMW, rocking the Rova, I believe Rova oil. Rova products, at least. Miska in the 999 wannabe Red Bull Racing McLaren 720S GT3, much quicker. Sylph in the BMW jumps up into the top row, not in the top spot, still 0.6 yet to go, and Miska just an absolute bullet around any track. Put him behind the wheel of anything. He is just going to be phenomenally fast as Miska goes back out on track. First driver into the 52s just as we started to have more of the field creep into the 53s. Who is that going off? That looks to be the 416 of Slapshot. Five minutes left to go in free practice, and right now Miska, all eyes on the blue and red McLaren, number 999. And Miska, easy to place your money on him to win just about any race, has to have luck still on his side, as does anyone. And a big moment there from Miska, having to avoid contact with, I believe, the number 700 GTR of Bob Lysias. I believe there may have been some contact there, and Miska will slow down and let the GTR go by, I believe. Or at least just making sure that he was A-okay. Sylph closing the gap, not quite into the 152s, but getting much closer, only 2 1/4 tenths of a second off. That should be, I believe, a 153.1. 153.15 is around what I would expect that time to be, or a 1.6. Sylph will pull over Miska in the pit lane, Dive Bomb Dammy in the pit lane. Slapshot's still out. Goose in the BMW still out. Jones was running the Lexus previously, now switching over to the Aston Martin with Zoenam and the American AMR's team. Two drivers switching over from cars that they were very comfortable with to a new car this season. And Jones almost half a second clear of the AM field. Grant in P2, Clint in P3. As Grant jumps up to P1 by about 2.5 tenths, quarter of a second between Grant and Jones. Not much time left to go in free practice as the sun continues to set. And we will be started here shortly. Grant is actually going to go wide and end his free practice session. Phoenix still out, actually just now comes into the pit lane, so Slapshot currently P4. Grant P1, Jones P2, Clint P3, Force Fate P4, Zonon P5. Quite a few in our AM field out there today. Still quite a few laps to be set. Iceberg in the McLaren, Uncleaner Cross in the McLaren. Radioactive in the McLaren as well. 3 very quick pros still yet to set lap times, especially the 2 exclusive esports McLarens of Radioactive and Uncleaner Cross. Just a little bit more time left in free practice. Rabel is coming through turns 4 and 5. And I believe Rabel in the Porsche will be the last car out on track in free practice. So long as this lap stays clean, it will be one more lap to maybe put one on the board before we get started with qualifying. If it's your first time joining us here with GoFAST Racing, we have a 20-minute qualifying session, 10 minutes to the AM field, 10 minutes to the pro field. AM will go first. Make sure the seat is nice and warm for the pros. Rabel with a big moment into turn 9, and that is going to bring an end to our free practice session. Zoanam rolling will be the first AM driver out of the pit lane. Slapshot will start the queue at the end of the pit lane, as he always does. Wants to be first into the session, get that first pit box. Doesn't mean too much when we actually get started with our pit stops during the race. But Zoanam likely to be the first out to set the pace for the AM field. Flying down the straight, but will not have any help from any teammates or opponents. With no slipstream down the down the backstretch, and just trying to modulate throttle, get the car rotated through the almost endless turn 9. Now out of 13 for the first time to get started with qualifying for our AM field. Zonum will float to the outside, try to get the car rotated to the inside. Track limits, a major factor in qualifying, and will be a major problem during the race. Every time we have races here at Paul Ricard, it is just eventually a penalty fest, as track limits here very easy to overstep as you're trying to find that time. Especially chasing the car in front of you, you may not realize, as flat as this track is, that you have overstepped here or there, and very easy to be given an advantage, or say that you had been given an advantage in leaving the track. Especially through Sector 1, Turn 1 and 2, the chicane there, and then the tight complex of turns 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Very easy to step outside. Same thing here at turn 8. You see those 3 little pylons to the outside at turn 8. It's technically your track limit, but there's not really a defined line of where the outside of that track limit is. You'll just know whenever either your lap delta turns red or you are given that warning. Into turn 12 for the first time, and then hard braking back the other way for turn 13, the hairpin. Just trying to keep it within track limits and across the line to set a time for the AM field. And no good from Zoenom. And who will be up next? It looks to be the Mustang of Stubbly Squid. That's just kind of what you're going to see there with those track limits. The Stubbly Squid set a time. No time set there. Nightwalker was quickest, 33 thousandths of a second quicker went Maverick, but then Force Fate of 55.597 is quickest. We got a request for an onboard. Show how bad the visibility is into turn 1. I don't think it's so bad right now, but as the sun goes down, it will be getting worse. Dancing up and down the gears through the Sector 2 turn complex, right there at the Sector 1 timing line. Grant and the BMW currently on top. 155.277, the time to beat for the AM split. I wanted to say AM field, but it is the AM split. Peachy, who really needs to try and earn some points here early to set himself up for the best opportunity at a fight for the championship at the end of the season. Currently 0.2 of a second off in P2. 155.477 for Peachy. Grant still quickest. What about the 40 of Stubbly Squid and the Mustang? Just good enough for P10. So we do have a few more drivers coming across. Rabel jumps up to P12. Grant still quickest, but does anyone have the time on this lap to improve and knock Grant down a spot? At least in this group of cars coming across the line, I do not believe so. Scary is getting close. Look at that in the Lexus. Too Slow Roadblock Racing. Number 68 Lexus of Scary. Maybe have some teamwork here. No, not quite close enough. I thought Scary may have been slowing down to try and get the slipstream of the teammate or give the teammate some slipstream, but no, he's actually going to slot in behind the BMW of Grant. Try to find the lost time that he needs to put that Lexus on pole position. What's the best way to do so? Well, to shadow the guy who is on pole. About a tenth and a half between these two. And there will be one more opportunity at improving on these laps as they come across the start-finish line. That also means no room for error if you are going to go for a quicker lap on this final lap. I do believe just about everyone has set a lap time. Granados and the Mercedes is not going to set a lap time. Will stay in the pit lane. Jones in the Aston Martin, a 1:55.022. And maybe Scary saying, dang, I didn't follow the right guy, but apparently he did. A 1:54.915 from Grant. Jones sat on pole for just a moment. Ethanol now goes quicker, a 1:59.407, 8 thousandths of a second. The difference between Ethanol and Grant at the top of the field. And now Scary, who had only about a tenth and a half of work to do, now has half a second to try and find. And that is a much taller order than he was expecting heading into this lap. The number 30 of Peachy will have one more opportunity, but also has no help, no friends, no neighbors to borrow some slipstream from. The number 7 Ferrari of Zeus will come around the final corner as well. We'll have one more opportunity to try to improve, but the 30 of Peachy not going to improve, returns to the pit lane, will not be able to qualify any better than P5, and Nightstalk in the GTR will be one of the last. I believe Zoanum will be the last driver to cross the line with another flying lap under his belt. 3 seconds away from the pros being released. Stubbly Squid will be one of the final drivers to come into the pit lane, as that is just going to be pit stop practice. Nightwalker P7. Brother Elmo in the Bentley P11, the BMW of Iceman P14. Grant across the line, does not find. Yes, he does. 1:54.872 right at the end. What about for Manelli in the 5.55, which is good enough for P16. Grant currently in P1. PG P5, Zonum P6. Still out on track is Zeus in the Ferrari and the 12 of Nightstalk. But as it looks right now, it does seem to be the 1:54.872 from Grant is quick enough for the top spot. Will there be any response from Zeus? 2.5 seconds off the pace as of right now. May have some time to try and improve. A couple tenths will get him up 1 spot. And will get that 1 spot up to P17. And the 12 of Nightstalk, good enough for P4. We'll hop on board with Slapshot now as the sun has started to set a bit more. Let's see what they mean about that visibility. I don't see what they're complaining about. It's really not too bad, but as the sun does get lower, I can see how it starts to become a bit of a factor. Once we get clear of these trees, we'll see what it looks like. Still not too bad. But I will say you can't see much of the road until you're right on top of it. Gotta hope that somebody coming out of the pit lane doesn't take away the brake markers into turn 1. A pretty common issue here at Paul Ricard. And Grant P1, 1:54.872, ethanol 35 thousandths of a second off. But not qualifying is the Mercedes of Granados. Pretty much going to be a sandwich of the field for the G2 racing duo. Ethanol P2, Granados at the back. Into turn 8. and then 9. Slapshot with Prieto in tow. Battle between these two as old as time. But now instead of fighting directly at the front, now typically fighting around P5 or P6. Into turns 12 and 13. As long as this lap is valid, Slapshot will set the pace for the pro field. Had been competitive with his times, close to the front of 154.482, 154.225. We did see times down into the 153s and possibly the 152s from Miska. If anyone is able to repeat lap times, it is Miska. Radioactive, a 154.162, 63 thousandths of a second clear of Prieto. Then Dive Bomb Danny, 154.065, goes even quicker. Lexus very quick in qualifying, the quickest of any of the other cars down the straights, but how is that speed going to transfer over to the race? It's always a big question for the Lexus, as it doesn't seem to race quite as well as the other cars. A great qualifying time setter. Really, really fast down the straights, and this is one of its strongest tracks just based on the long straights that we have, but not quick enough. Still, the 153.889, still no time set by Miska, but that should be coming soon. Miska just now on the backstretch. If you look for the number 999 on the marching ends, just coming into the Sector 3, the end of Sector 2, beginning of Sector 3 timing line, and throwing that car currently into the right-hander of Turn 8. We may go ahead and hop on board with Miska. As the sun is setting, we'll see how bad that visibility is starting to get. Miska is the one who had requested the onboard camera. And yes, the sun is setting. It does look like it's going to get quite difficult to see shortly. Rotated the car around turn 12 and then back the other way through 13, kind of like a bit of switchbacks. The sun continues to set, but still not very easy to see. Prieto is back on top, and now 3/4 of a second ahead is Miska, 152.957, and very hard to see that turn 1 curving as the sun kind of blends the curve and the road all together. Currently quickest by a long shot. Miska at the front of the field at 152.957. Phoenix goes second fastest, and now maybe trying to challenge Miska. Remember, Phoenix, a newcomer to GoFAST Racing just a couple seasons ago, kind of sat in the top 10, but not really in direct conversation for victory. Don't know what happened now to this season, but challenging on a regular basis the mighty Miska, as Phoenix jumps all the way up into the second position, and the only driver within half a second, which also makes him the only driver within 1/4 of a second of Miska. Prieto and Goose right there at 3/4 of a second. But for the time being, no one holding a candle to the top two. There's only a little bit of time left in free practice, and now the sun likely going to be at its worst through the session. Phoenix going a touch wide through 9. That is going to invalidate the lap. What does Miska have left in it? Miska will get one more lap should he choose to take it, and absolutely clattering over those curbs, pushing, but not going to go for another lap. Phoenix across the line, one more opportunity, needs a quarter of a second. Does he even have it on the Delta? Obviously you give it your all every lap you take. But we'll see if Phoenix has an answer to Miska. There'll be a legendary lap from Phoenix if he can do it. Radioactive currently P3, jumps up almost half a second away from Miska. I do believe this is the exclusive esports duo. They may be giving each other some slipstream, and I think they're both going to have one more lap to go. The 311 of Uncleaner Cross may be trying to pull Radioactive into the slipstream down the backstretch. At least I would think they'd try to cooperate there. Just barely going to have enough time to get back across the line for one more lap. Slapshot in P7 currently 8.38 seconds away. Up to P6 now, found a little bit of time. And Miska has parked it in the pit lane. We'll see if Phoenix has an answer. Just about everyone else will be on their final flying lap now. Hope Blue jumps up into P4. Goose P5. Prieto P6 has found a little bit more time. The lap's starting to come down now. Francisco will end his qualifying session in P15. Iceberg P29 coming into the pit lane. And Pro Platypus out on track now trying to get a lap put in. Silt in the 443 BMW currently P8. Goes up to P3, slotting just ahead of the 787 of Radioactive. The 21 of Pro Platypus in the Lamborghini will be the next to cross the line. And Slapshot will be next behind with Prieto in tow. Those two have really gone the entire qualifying session nose to tail across the line for Pro Platypus. What will it be? Just good enough for P31 overall. A long way to go back up to the top for the former championship contender. Slapshot P8 is not going to have anything left in the tank and will pull into the pit lane. So will Prieto, and maybe we have a little bit of a spurgeoning, if that's the right word, relationship there between Slapshot and Prieto as they followed each other in. Uncleaner Cross just good enough for P10, and Dive Bomb Danny in the Lexus last across the line, just good enough for P11. It's Miska on top. Grant, Ethanol, Jones, Nightstalk, Scary, Peachy, Zoanam, Nightwalker, Force Fate, Clint, Maverick. Oh, get out of there. Clint, Maverick, Elmo, Stubbly Squid, Iceman, Rabel, Manelli, Zeus, Lynch, Bubblicius, and Granados. Your split, and for the overall standings as they are coming out of qualifying, the race starting order: Miska P1, Phoenix P2, Sylph P3, Radioactive P4, Hope Blue P5, Goose P6, Prieto P7, Slapshot P8, Lingard P9. A good qualifying session from the graduating driver out of AM. Uncleaner Cross P10, Dive Bomb P11, Dingham P12, Grant P13, Ethanol P14, Francisco P15, Jones P16, Nightstalk P17, Scary P18, Peachy P19, Zoanon P20, Nightwalker P21, Force Fate P22, Clint P23, Maverick P24, Elmo P25. Stubbly Squid P26, Iceman P27, Rabel P28, Iceberg P29, Manelli P30, Platypus P31, Zeus P32, Lynch P33, Bobolicius P34, and Granados. No time set. We'll start P35. We'll take a short break, and we will be right back for the formation lap and the green flag here for the second round of GoFast Racing Season 7 at Paul Ricard. Welcome back, as we are just about to get rolling, as Miska will lead the field for the formation lap. Engines are fired, and we are now rolling. Miska and Phoenix. If there will be any championship fight, surely looks like it will be between these two. Miska, obviously the favorite between the two. That does not mean that Miska is going to run every race this season. I don't know that Miska has fully committed to a full race calendar. But Phoenix, even if he is just able to come home every week with a P2, that is well enough to put yourself within a shout of a championship at the end of the season. Maybe if you could squeak out a win or two here and there. As Miska a long way looking back. We still have cars just now coming out of turn 2. I believe our full field, 35 drivers on the grid. As you look off into the background, still cars coming out of turns 6 and 7. Miska hoping this is how it looks pretty much the whole race out the back, and this is how he hopes it looks out front, with maybe the occasional lap car coming on by every now and then. Phoenix in the BMW, the Rova BMW, just will be trying to stay alongside or immediately behind. Very hard to try and hold on to the pace of Miska. If anyone can do it, it does seem to be Phoenix this season. Grant on pole in AM. And looking back from Grant's perspective in the BMW Ethanol P2, Jones P3, Nightstalk P4, no teammates in sight. The STP Racing teammate of Manelli all the way back in what I believe will be about P12. Actually more like P15 in AM, a long way back. See if Manelli can get closer to the pole-sitting teammate. But Ethanol with G2 Racing in the AM Mercedes. Also no help as his teammate had a technical issue and was unable to get out on track and qualify. Otherwise, it would be a G2 Racing advantage coming into tonight's race. Does not mean that Granados can't run down the field. And also Clint practiced very well, qualified well I had thought, but it's going to be a pit lane start. Don't know if there was an issue for Clint there, or maybe it's a strategic start, but not really one to easily take advantage of. There is potential for some early incidents here, but GoFAST Racing, one of the cleaner leagues that you will find, definitely quicker. The aggression is still there. Miska and Phoenix side by side at the front of the field as we approach the green flag. And green, 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 we are racing. Does seem to be pretty much an even fight among Miska and Phoenix. The BMW does accelerate quite nicely. The McLaren has better handling though. Phoenix just needs to try and hold the inside as Miska will go on ahead, and side by side between the two BMWs of Phoenix and Silth. And Silth is actually going to clear around the outside. Phoenix is not going to give away the position though, but is now dropping back as Hope Blue will have the inside through turn 4. Coming into turn 5, Phoenix once again has the inside, will try to hold on to the position. And Hope Blue with a bit of a wiggle coming off of turn 4, off of turn 5. I thought for a second there Radioactive would have a shot at going on through, but no, will just slot in behind. And Hope Blue, do we have bump drafting already? There was talk of some bump drafting to maybe celebrate the release of NASCAR 25 this week. We do have 2 cars slow at the back. There is kind of a top line looking to go around the outside, a touch of contact. Radioactive will be shunted to the outside. Hope Blue does give the position though. And very deep braking, trying to rotate the car late. There's a touch and around he goes. Hope Blue and Radioactive. Hope Blue will give the position back, but both of these drivers stranded as I believe Radioactive had to try and refire the car, dropping down the grid, all the way back behind the number 2 of Iceberg. And now some contact as these two, who are very quick, are going to have to try and race their way through the field, all the way through the AM field as well. What has happened to Zoenom in the Aston Martin? I believe a similar incident. And off in the wall, had to get that car refired. Almost a second clear now is Miska. And Silth in P2, Phoenix still in P3. The gap has grown now between Prieto and Goose, I believe, from that contact with Hope Blue and Radioactive. And Prieto will now have to try and run down the 3 BMWs ahead of him. The gap is growing. Silth has lost the slipstream of Miska, who was just able to put that McLaren out front. No issues at all, no one to fight with. Maybe there can be some cooperation from Silth and Phoenix to try and chase down, maybe bump draft each other to get closer to the McLaren just up ahead. It's going to be a hard fight, and I don't know if there's going to be too much cooperation from the two. Nightstock behind the recently promoted 2-Pro Mustang of Lingard, and I believe we are going to get some bump drafting here between these two, Lingard and Nightstock. And some racing in AM just behind some pack racing we have here. That is the BMW of Grant for P3 in AM, the Ferrari of Nightwalker immediately behind. Ethanol dropped down a long way back to P5 in AM, and Peachy in P6 looking to work his way forward, just now making his way around the Aston Martin of Jones. Force Fate dropping back a couple positions there as well, and Hope Blue, as Radioactive has taken the incident, tried to make lemonade out of soured lemons. As he comes into the pit lane early and is now going to be on a long strategy to go from here to the end. Silth looks like he's closed up to Miska, is going to be within slipstream range as long as he can keep the gap as it is. And the BMWs are quicker down the straight than the McLaren. I think there may be some cooperation between Silth and Phoenix to try and catch the McLaren of Miska, and I think they understand that this is going to be the only way possible to catch the McLaren. And Silth is definitely within slipstream range now. What about for Goose? Looking back as Prieto in the NSX trying to get closer and closer to the slipstream, thoroughly working. I think there was a thought of a bump there, but is now going to opt to go around the outside. We're going to see a lot of this move here. Some may be better at it than others, and not quite timing it right. Prieto had to back out of it, and Goose is going to hold on to the position, but that will allow Slapshot through the inside. I think it had to be a big lift to avoid contact from Prieto. Contact through that corner would pretty much immediately spell disaster. And now Miska has company in the form of the BMW of Silth as they come through turn 11. Down into 12. If these two can battle, Phoenix can get right into that fight as well and make this a three-way fight for the lead. Two BMW drivers don't need to fight amongst themselves and allow Miska to run away. Look at the BMW in the slipstream range, holding station to the McLaren. And what about that visibility? Heard complaints from Miska early on about the visibility. It's not too bad yet, but as the sun sets, it is going to get worse. Getting almost up to the rear bumper of Miska. Silth later on the brakes now holds the fastest lap of the race, but these three, your top three, all fighting for a chance at the lead. We are just 7 minutes into this race, if that. I think it's more so 6.5. Nightstock in the GTR leading nicely. It's a very quick car in a straight line. Ascari in the Lexus, also a quick car in the straight line, and top speed really seems to be what you need here in the AM field, at least. Now Slapshot under attack from Prieto once again. What about at the front of the field? Still just in a train between the three of them. Dirty Air really going to be a factor here as well. Also track limits. Silth went very wide. You cannot afford to get many track limit violation warnings. Getting a notice of going outside the track limits as long as you don't gain an advantage is fine. It's when you start getting those warnings, you only get 3 warnings, and then your next offense is going to, or your next offense is going to be that 30 or that drive-through penalty for track limits. Not the worst here, but you are going to be pitting during a very high-speed section of track. It's not really coming out in any sort of turns or anything. So you will not lose a ton of time, but you will lose a good amount of it. Battle between Ethanol and Jones. Jones looks like he just went around the Mercedes of Ethanol. little bit of damage on the front of that Mercedes. Dive Bomb Danny P7 chasing down the NSX of Prieto, who is still trying to find a way past Slapshot, who is just lined up behind Goose and the BMW. Aside from that group there, it's your top three at the front. Miska just trying to stay where he can. It looked like he was trying to break the toe, but not really much working there. Still just sitting within slipstream of each other. Miska is the one of these three not getting any slipstream whatsoever, but I do believe the McLaren is the better handling car through the technical sections. Paul Ricard does look like a simple, just high-speed track, but the technical sections here around Paul Ricard, as Silt is going to get a big run up into turn 9 and will now be right on the bumper of Miska coming into turn 10, and Phoenix will follow suit. Miska, without any sort of slipstream, once again holds the fastest lap of the race. Hopping on board with Goose. Dive Bomb Danny has got a couple positions there. At least it looked like it. Maybe Dingham has actually gone ahead. And yes, he has. Dingham has overtaken Dive Bomb Danny and Dingham in the Lexus. Up to P7, now immediately behind Goose. What has happened there? Slapshot and Prieto now both up ahead. I think they may have decided to put a bumper to Goose and move him out of the way, and now Goose going to be a sitting duck down the backstretch as Dingham and Dive Bomb Danny, both in the Lexus, will look to try and go right on by. Same song and dance at the front of the field from Miska. Miska, Silth, Phoenix, 1, 2, and 3. Slapshot now 8 seconds behind, as your top three are really seeming to work together, all different teams. No team relations there whatsoever. And Slapshot very, very defensive into turn 8, forcing Prieto to go up the inside. Wants him to overshoot. Slapshot will try and get the drive up the inside to cut back on through, and is now going to try and go for the move into turn 9. It's not going to work though, and Prieto looks like he's got it done. But a long way to go to get to the cars up ahead. Now the gap's up ahead, closing even more. What has happened to Phoenix? May have just lost it, pushing too hard over the curves. Now Miska and Silth are all over each other. Phoenix is not out of it, but as long as Miska and Silth can fight amongst each other. But it's going to be a long way back for Phoenix. No slipstream. 3.4 seconds. It's not impossible to claw this back, especially with these two fighting at the front of the field. But it's going to take quite a while. But the good thing is, Phoenix should be able to drive with minimal interruptions. Dingham with this Lexus right at home. In the Too Slow Racing, Lexus currently fighting with Slapshot for P5. An awesome race so far for the Too Slow Lexus. Definitely not too slow here at Paul Ricard. Watch back behind as the Lexus of Dingham will try and reel in the McLaren of Slapshot. And what do we have here? We do have a car in the pit lane. Radioactive has come in. Zoenom has come in as well, but Hope Blue at the back of the field. Is Dingham going to get it done, or will they just be side by side going in? Dingham is going to allow Slapshot the run up the inside. Miska and Silth continuing to run, and I believe Hope Blue may have had an incident. Is sitting in the pit lane, I believe just repairing that car. Could be a retirement from Hope Blue, which would be major in the championship, especially with the MSA looking to go for the repeat championships in both the drivers and team championships. Car number 7 of Zeus, the Ferrari 296, getting a drive-through penalty for track limits. That's the first one, and it will not be the last one. Where does that penalty come in? Iceman and Manelli racing amongst each other. Manelli trying to find a way past the BMW of Iceman. And what do we have here side by side as you come on to the backstretch? Miska and Silth. Silth trying to find a way past Miska, slotting behind in the slipstream. Is he going to be able to get close enough by the time they get to turn 8? I don't think the speed difference is big enough between the BMW and the McLaren. Silth will get close, tries to force the overshoot from Miska. If anybody you're going to try to get to overshoot, it's not going to be Miska. Pretty much perfection all around. Silth is trying to find a way to be even more perfect. Will find a way past. Now as these two battle, as I said, Phoenix Gecko not completely out of it at all. Gap was 3.4 seconds, 3.3 at the beginning of the lap, now 2 seconds, and as they battle harder, that gap will continue to shrink if Phoenix Gecko can get back within slipstream before some sort of overtake happens between these two. Now 1.9 really could see Phoenix have a shot at the front once again. Bingham in the Lexus, dive bomb Danny immediately behind. As these two are going for a top 5 position. Iceberg in the number 2 McLaren gets a drive-through penalty for track limits. Told you it wouldn't be the last, and that still won't be the last of the session. Silth trying to chase down Miska still. This time Silth a bit further back, but is still within slipstream range. Phoenix Gecko also starting to get within that slipstream range, or get much closer, 1.8 seconds. We'll see how the gap has changed. Back to 2.1, so the gap has grown a bit. I think that is just due to these two starting to spread out from each other and run those faster laps, not in direct competition. Slapshot still trying to defend against the 2 Lexus behind him that are definitely quicker than his McLaren. And Goose, going just wide of the pylons, gets a drive-through penalty. And Goose just deciding to get out of the way of this fight between Lingard and Francisco. This battle for P9 will be the battle for P8, as Goose is going to have to come into the penalty, or come into the pit lane and serve that penalty. And I believe Lingard holding on to the position for now. Renato's trying to work his way up the field, now up to the Mustang of Stubbly Squid. And I believe that is the Aston Martin of Zoanam, who is 2 laps down, should really just be 1 lap down, but has completed the pit stop. And Stubbly Squid going to come into the pit stop early. First one to come into the pit lane on what seems to be a scheduled pit stop. Phoenix Gecko, no slipstream, so he is going to get further away, but as these two continue to battle, he is still just inching ever so much closer. And pit lane going to be a major factor here as well. As Phoenix, he's got a good stop, could really gain a lot of time. Manelli was surviving, and yes, he is surviving. Now has the GTR of Bob Lysius in the slipstream, and the GTR very quick in a straight line. GTR not quick enough to get by though. Maverick comes into the pit lane as well. And Radioactive is going to be the first out. Platypus with an off at turn 6, an interesting place to go around, but there had to have been some sort of contact there. And Goose, having served the penalty, still needs to come in for a pit stop. All the way back down at P21, was racing for P5 at one point. Miska and Silth still running as they were, and now Phoenix Gecko starting to drop off a bit. Prieto all on his own. Slapshot still has the Lexus behind of Dingham. Dive Bomb Danny now behind Dingham as well. And Nightstalk still your race leader in Scary, with Grant immediately behind. Scary and the Lexus, though, is quicker down the straight. And the 21 of Pro Platypus now gets a drive-through penalty as well. Much closer between these two at the front of the field, Miska and Silth, but Silth goes a touch wide into turn 12. Phoenix Gecko right there as well. And Maverick gets a 30-second stop-and-go penalty for speeding in pit lane. That is extremely unfortunate. So he will have to come back into the pit lane, stop to serve a 30-second no moving penalty. Has to stop in the box, shut the car down for 30 seconds, and then can get rolling once again. It's like a drive-through penalty on steroids. Dive Bomb Danny comes in. Lingard comes in from P9. It also has the AM leader of Nightstalk come into the pit lane. Do we have any more takers? The Two Knights Racing double stack. Nightwalker in the Ferrari comes in as well. And we'll see if we have any more takers. Goose is going to have to come into the pit lane at some point also, and is a long way back, is going to be pushed even further back. Still no pit lane for the leaders. The view from the front, or out the front of the BMW of Phoenix. You see the McLaren and the BMW of Miska and Silth just ahead, just barely within eyesight, close enough you can smell them, but not close enough you can taste them. As we are officially halfway through this race. Just trying to push as hard as possible, completely riding that inside curve. Is there going to be an undercut in the pit lane? No. Miska comes in. Phoenix says, well, I'm going to come in as well. And that will leave Silth out to dry. we will see how that will affect Sylph, as Prieto now gets promoted to P2. Phoenix comes in, Slapshot comes in, Dingham comes in, Francisco will stay out in the McLaren. When do we see Scary come in? Not yet. Still racing with Grant. Grant officially scored right now in P2, but should be P3 after the rest of the field comes in. And Nightstalk all on his own in AM. Came into the pit lane from the race lead. Just hopes that everything pit cycle-wise goes back his way. Ethanol in the pit lane. Peachy finding the box as well. And Goose comes in with Rabel in tow. And Phoenix Gecko with a monster stop as long as he doesn't get a penalty at the end of the box, and he does not. And almost as close behind as Sylph was, at least as they came to the line. But when they finally got back under power, the gap did grow. And with traffic up ahead, may make things a bit interesting. Phoenix just needs traffic to kind of help him in his endeavors. 1.2 seconds the gap. When do we see Sylph come in? Sylph typically likes to stay out for the long runs, but no, he's going to come in on the next lap. Has it been an undercut for Phoenix Gecko on Sylph to slot in between, or are they all three going to come out of the pit lane or to the turn one entry, door to door to door? And Prieto comes in as well. So does Francisco from scored P3. Scary and the Lexus from P1 in AM should be officially P2. Grant will stay out in the BMW. I believe that is the Aston Martin of Jones coming in with Force Fate in the McLaren behind as well. We should see Granados come in soon. And Manelli still to come in. Zeus still to come in. But Zeus a long way back. Pro Platypus at the end of the pit lane and getting the stop cleared. And not the race that Pro Platypus would have wanted to have, and not the race that the Elmer's racing team would have hoped for coming into tonight, but just got to cross the finish line and live to see another day. And has Sylph done it? Sylph may have been able to push harder than anyone else, and with the traffic out, Sylph comes out a massive undercut on Miska, and Sylph now comfortably leads this race comfortably for the time being, has some traffic between himself and Miska. Miska just about has the BMW of Phoenix in tow as Manelli comes into the pit lane. Scary currently scored the leader in AM, but it should be Nightstalk up ahead. And it is Nightstalk up ahead. Grant is scored the leader in AM, but needs to come into the pit lane and will likely be doing so at the end of this lap, so here in just a few moments. And we'll pull to the right-hand side and pull into the pit lane. So Grant scored the leader in AM, at least for the time being. Nightstalk coming down the backstretch. Grant, I believe, was overall scored P3 or P4 in AM, so it is very possible that Grant has made a ton of time staying out on track and going for the overcut. Sylph, Miska, Phoenix. And Miska is hungry. How quick is a hungry Miska? Sounds like a Dr. Seuss book. And that visibility was a major complaint in practice and qualifying. Now that sun is starting to set, I believe that visibility is going to get a lot worse. How is that going to affect the closing stages of this race? Once again, Miska is hungry. A bit of a snap, pushed off of the curb. The front wheels not quite cooperating there, and that's actually going to cause Miska to lose a little bit of time. And hopping on board with the BMW of Phoenix, who may just barely be within slipstream range of Miska after that wobble coming out of turn 4. And it does look like Phoenix is starting to gain ever so slightly on Miska. Maybe we see the inverse of the battle that we saw earlier. And yes, Phoenix just slightly gaining, is going to be on tires just as old as Phoenix. Silt is actually going to be on newer tires of these three. And looking for the late rotation through turn 9. Tell you what though, Phoenix cannot afford another mistake like the one a few minutes ago coming out of turn 10 into turn 11. Bit of a slow exit. The spin of the tires out of the final corner, I don't know if that's really going to lose him too much time, but that McLaren does seem to be getting slightly smaller in the distance. As they come across the line, it actually is going to be a fair bit of time lost, about 4/10 of a second. Radioactive on the long run on really old tires and a full tank of fuel, hoping he has enough to make it to the end. Has clawed his way back out to P10, but has Lingard in the Mustang immediately behind. Maybe wanting to have a go at P10. GoFAST Racing, a very progressive league, as Nightwalker gets a drive-through penalty for track limits. But GoFAST Racing, a very progressive league. You see a lot of drivers actually truly go through full skill progression during their tenure here at GoFAST Racing, and this is kind of a launch pad for a lot of these drivers to transition over to PC. Start getting into like Le Mans Ultimate and iRacing and things like that. This really is a conglomeration of the top talent on console, and even our AM drivers here would smoke every single public lobby out there, and really most leagues. You have consistent league winners coming out of other leagues, and they pop up here into GoFAST Racing. And it may seem like some drivers kind of sit in the middle or the back of the grid within their respective class, but that does not mean that they're a slow driver, as you put them in just about any other league and they dominate. It just really is the upper echelon of skill here in GoFAST Racing. And there really is nowhere like it. There's a reason why we've started to have these bigger organizations like MSA Racing. They are a major effort in pretty much all of the big endurance races on console. Exclusive esports as well, really starting to have a presence here over the past couple seasons as Nightwalker comes into the pit lane to serve that drive-through penalty. But you've started to have a big growth of these leagues, these other leagues starting to, plant a seed here in GoFAST Racing, maybe recruit some other drivers to their ranks, maybe find a way to maybe split off from the league that they had been racing with or team they had been racing with, and find some other guys to maybe make a team with, and really just see how fast you truly are. There are a lot of people that just come here either to see if they've still got it or if they really are as quick as they think they are. GoFAST Racing a lot older than my time here with these guys. It has been, well, I'd say about a year and a half since I started with GoFAST Racing, or right about a year, somewhere in there. But seeing the progression of the drivers firsthand, seeing the progression of the league firsthand, the amount of tools that we have and how we have been going about a console league and it's just really like no other. And I've been a part of it. Radioactive and Lingard getting close, but look at this. We do have a battle for the top spot in AM. Radioactive and Lingard, a three-way fight. No, they're trying to get past the lap traffic car of Zeus and the Ferrari. But in the process, I believe that is Knifestock having some trouble trying to get past the Ferrari, and now has brought Grant into the conversation. The 985 of Ethanol, who had been having a great race, now gets a drive-through penalty as well. A very late penalty there at the same time. Lingard in the Mustang trying to pull away from Radioactive. Radioactive in that slipstream is going to try and slide on by. And Knifestock in the GTR, who is also very quick. Godzilla, we're about to go 3 wide. Knifestock just opted to stay behind, and Lingard not able to hold on to P9 as Radioactive goes on by, but the battle there is not over yet, especially with Knifestock, who may be quicker than the both of them. Knifestock wanting to get past this group pretty much yesterday, as Grant is now well in the conversation in the BMW, and look who that is closing up behind as well. Scary, who is just behind the Ferrari of Zeus. Scary trying to get as much of the slipstream as he can before he goes on by. And if Scary can get the slipstream of the BMW just ahead, but no, Scary was really hoping that Zeus would yield there, and no yield from Zeus, holding his line. And Scary goes around into the wall. That car has died, and he's actually going to join just ahead of Jones, who's going to make contact. And massive incidents in the top positions. And there's also going to be more contact there. That's going to be the McLaren of Peachy. I think everyone just scrambling to get back out on track. And some panicking there as well. Jones, I think, may have gotten some significant damage. Scary has significant damage as well. And that's going to be 2 very late retirements. What about the number 94 of Iceman around at turn 9? Wonder if that was anything to be of note from the stewards. The stewards will be looking at any and all reported incidents post-race, and will be applying penalties to the finishing positions as deemed necessary. Radioactive and Lingard still battling, but that is just choking up this battle between Knifestock and Grant. Grant wants to have an eye up the inside at turn 10. It's not quite going to be afforded to him. Knifestock in the GTR, very quick behind, and also very quick, or equally as quick, Mustang of Lingard. Radioactive just up ahead. leading the charge, giving all four of these, or all three of these drivers slipstream. Grant now truly in that slipstream, just trying to hold on to the GTR. But no, what has happened to the 33 of Lingard? I think he completely lost it on his own, trying to push just a little bit too hard. That is going to get the position to Radioactive, but now side by side between Knifestock and Grant for the AM lead. I think a little bit too eager across the curbs from Knifestock there. That will put Grant right back in the conversation. Knifestock will not have any slipstream of the duo just ahead, and as we look back, I believe Grant is just going to be within that slipstream range, but he's not going to be quicker than the GTR, as the GTR will start to pull away down the backstretch, but I don't think the GTR handles better than the BMW, so Grant will just have to try and make this Sector 3 a very, very quick, very, very clean Sector 3 if he wants to get back close enough to try and find a move eventually on the GTR of Knifestock. A big drive through turn 8, and there's that superior handling from the BMW, and I think the tires on this GTR may be a little bit older as well, really starting to baby the car through turn 9. Knifestock just has to hold on to it. Grant just trying to find opportunity but cannot afford to make any mistakes. We've seen a lot of mistakes from drivers trying to push too hard for positions. Grant will have another 2 or 3 laps to try and find a way by. Going for the outside line, but it's really not going to help Grant, as he should actually lose a bit of time there. And Lingard now in the slipstream, but could be a strategic move from Grant here if he can get Lingard in the slipstream, pick him up, and maybe trail off of Lingard, who's in the faster Mustang. May be able to use Lingard to try and leapfrog up to the GTR of Knifestock, but it's a little too late to try and go for those types of strategic moves. Regardless though, P2 for Grant would be great in his debut season here at GoFAST Racing. Grant really needs Lingard to use that superior Mustang speed to try and find a way by, and then does not need Lingard to slow up whatsoever. If Lingard is quicker than Grant, she does seem to be catching quite a lot down the straight. If Grant can get Lingard by, he may be able to just barely time the move right to piggyback the slipstream down the straight to get close enough to Knifestock. But once again, Lingard may not necessarily be so eager to try and battle so hard when he's really not going to be getting any positions out of it. Radioactive in P9, the 787 McLaren, a couple seconds ahead, so really not too much incentive for Lingard to push too hard. I think Lingard is still going to push regardless, as they are still all racing for overall points. Grant has now got right back up to the rear bumper of Knifestock, so maybe didn't need Lingard to try and help there. And I think the handling of the BMW through the Sector 3 technical section is really starting to show. I don't know how long it's been since there was a pit stop for these two drivers, if maybe Grant is on newer tires than Knifestock. I believe Grant is going to be on newer tires. Knifestock did pit first from the AM field. I think there may be a lap or two separating those two in terms of tires, but Grant has to stay close enough to the GTR. By the time they get onto the backstretch, has to be within that slipstream range, but not quite getting the run out of 6 and 7 that he needs. You'll see that gap between the front splitter of the BMW and the top of the rear spoiler of the GTR start to grow. Grant may just barely be within slipstream, but not quite close enough. And see how the delta changes. 0.895. But once again, coming into turn 8, this is going to be the final lap of the race this next time by. Actually, it will be 2 more to go. The race leaders have just come across, but no, it's a big mistake from Nightstalk. Very, very wide into turn 9, and I think the tires may be starting to fall off of that GTR. Nightstalk is going to defend with his life, but Grant does have a chance to try and find a way past. But I can guarantee you, Nightstalk is going to make that Nissan as wide as possible. It's already a large car as is, so is the BMW. But Nightstalk in that Nissan is going to be hard to pass. 2 to go as they come to the line. Silth still leading ahead of Miska. And at least as it stands, Silth will come to the line with 1 to go. And no, Miska does not win every race he joins. Or maybe Miska is just saving up his tires till the very end. Again, Silth has fresher tires of the top 3. But we'll see if Miska maybe held onto those tires a bit better. Go on board with Grant this time, seeing how close he can stay to the GTR. Nightstalk is feeling the pressure, trying to pull just outside of the slipstream. Not too much of a weave to try and break the toe. And Grant will take all the slipstream that he can get, actually seeming to get some this time down the straight. Race leaders are on the final lap. Grant cannot afford a drive-through penalty for track limits right at the very end here. Nightstalk does seem to have some trouble getting that Nissan rotated into turn 9. Grant having a much better time just about every time, just not quite close enough to get the move done before they get into the Sector 3 technical sector. Grant has the fresher tires of the 2 here, has the better handling car, but does he have what it takes to get past the GTR? Much tighter on exit out of the final corner, still in that slipstream. Let's watch from the rear of Nightstalk as they come into turn 1. Silth, as long as nothing changes, should come home with the lead of this race, come home with the win. Miska P2 and Phoenix Gecko P3. Grant with just 1 lap to go, less than a lap to go. Coming into the south end of the track for the final time. And now getting very large in the rearview mirror of Nightstalk. And getting a much better run through turn 6 and 7 this time, but not quite able to pull on the GTR. Nightstalk getting a really good exit that time. And now starting to get some slipstream of Iceman 94, some AM lap traffic. But how is that traffic going to become a factor in this race if Nightstalk gets slowed up just in the slightest? Well, that is not going to be a good sign for Nightstalk. Silth does take home the win. Miska P2, Phoenix Gecko P3, Prieto will come across the line. P4 between Nightstalk and Grant. I don't think Grant is quite close enough, but he does have a run heading into the final few corners of this track. Gap less than a second. Nightstalk still leading, and I don't think Grant is going to be close enough. It'd have to be a major dive bomb coming into the final 2 corners, but I don't think the BMW has it left in the car. Nightstalk will come home with the win in AM. Grant will bring home P2. Slapshot P4, Dive Bomb Danny P5, Dingham P6, Francisco P7, Radioactive P8. Nightstalk takes home the win in AM. P9, Grant P10, P2 in AM. Lingard P11, Force Fate will come home P3 in AM. P12 overall. Goose will come home P14 overall. Peachy P4 in M. Ethanol P5 in M. Granados P6 from the back of the pack. P5 and 6 for the G2 Racing Duo. Stubbly Squid P7, Clint P8, and side by side between Clint and Rabel. Rabel looks to just barely get the move done as they come into the final corner. Is it going to be a switcheroo from Rabel out of the final corner? Yes, it is. Rabel will get the position away. P16 overall for Rabel, and I believe that is going to be P8. P7 or P8 for Rabel in AM. Sylph takes home the win. Miska P2, Phoenix Gecko P3, Nightstalk P1, Grant P2, Force Fate P3. And that is your podium between the two classes tonight. Definitely an exciting one. Action all the way through. And for typically a track that does not have, or is not known for major action, an awesome race here at Paul Ricard. Let's do this one again. I think it's very rare that you see somebody or hear somebody say, let's do that again at Paul Ricard, but that was an absolutely awesome race. Hope to see you guys back next week for round 3 of GoFAST Racing Season 7. And I will see you guys later as we are going to go ahead and raid Jeb Bones, I believe. So have a good night, everybody, and watch some racing at Silverstone in VR. Have a good night, everybody.